On digital maps, war looks simple. One line moves forward, another holds, then retreats. Headlines follow the same pattern. City captured. Territory liberated. Frontline shifts. But the Russia-Ukraine war has never been that simple. Because what moves is not only troops, what moves is stamina. Psychology. Time. Russia is not chasing a fast victory, it is pursuing exhaustion. That is why, when Russia claims precision operations in areas said to be firmly controlled by Ukraine, many observers misread it as Ukrainian failure alone. What is actually happening is far more complex. This is not about one attack, it is about pressure that never stops. To understand this war, we must stop viewing it only from satellites and headlines and start looking at it up close. Inside narrow corridors. Inside ruined buildings used as temporary positions. Inside civilian lives caught between two grand narratives. When Russia speaks of precision, many imagine smart weapons and clean strikes. That assumption is wrong. Russian precision is not primarily about technology, it is about timing. Russia rarely attacks when the opponent is ready. It attacks when the opponent is tired. Ukrainian units often remain in position longer than planned due to limited rotation. Russia knows this. It calculates it. Pressure is applied gradually, not to break through immediately, but to drain. Small Russian assault units move in, not battalions. They advance quietly, avoiding large engagements. If resistance is strong, they pull back, not defeated, waiting. This is a cold style of warfare, unemotional, and precisely because of that, effective. In this war, drones are not just tools, they are psychological pressure. For Ukrainian soldiers, Russian drones mean one thing. No place is ever truly safe. Movement in daylight is risky. Delayed supply vehicles become targets. Defensive buildings turn into traps. Russia uses drones not only to strike, but to limit the opponent's options. When movement is restricted, defense becomes rigid. When defense is rigid, it becomes vulnerable. Ukraine fights back with electronic warfare, with anti-drone weapons, with battlefield innovation. But in a long war, quantity often defeats ingenuity. And in many sectors, Russia has that advantage. Control of the sky makes the ground exhausting, and exhaustion is the quietest weapon of all. Ukraine is often portrayed as constantly retreating. That image is misleading without context. Ukraine has not collapsed. Ukraine is resisting, and resistance is expensive. In many sectors, Ukrainian units remain deployed far beyond ideal rotation cycles. Rest becomes a luxury. In such conditions, tactical withdrawal is often not defeat, but survival. Yet every small withdrawal carries strategic cost. One building abandoned, one city block emptied, one supply route exposed. The question is no longer whether Ukraine has courage. That has been proven. The real question is whether its system can sustain a war of this duration without full air superiority, without consistent long-term supply certainty, and under constant multi-sector pressure. Russia understands a fundamental truth. Modern war is industrial war. Not about who is bravest today, but about who can produce, replace, and repeat tomorrow. Russia is not in a hurry. It applies pressure slowly. Limited attacks today, limited attacks tomorrow. No pause. This is not a war for spectacle. It is a war for logistics. In such conflicts, nations with large populations and independent industrial bases possess structural advantages. Russia operates fully aware of this reality. It does not seek symbolic victories. It seeks systemic exhaustion of the opponent. In long wars, time is not neutral. Time favors those prepared to wait. When a territory falls under Russian control, many assume the fighting there is over. In reality, that is when strategy begins. Russia moves quickly to establish administrative structures. Basic security is enforced. Aid distribution follows. This is not merely public relations, it is an effort to create normalcy. Normalcy stabilizes territory. Stable territory is difficult to reclaim. In modern warfare, control over daily life is as important as control over terrain. Russia understands this clearly. Footage of civilians welcoming Russian forces often triggers extreme reactions. Some dismiss it entirely as propaganda. Others interpret it as total support. Both views oversimplify reality. In many areas, civilians have lived for years under uncertainty. Sirens, blackouts, artillery threats. In such conditions, the arrival of any force that halts local fighting is often met not with enthusiasm, but with relief. Relief that the night may pass without explosions. This is not about flags. It is about survival. War always creates moral dilemmas. Civilians rarely have ideal choices. They choose among what remains. When Russia provides food, medical services, and basic security, many accept, not because propaganda is flawless, but because necessity is immediate. Humanitarian reality here is not a slogan, it is daily life. Ignoring this dimension leads to misunderstanding why newly controlled areas do not automatically descend into chaos. Ukraine speaks of sovereignty and international law. Russia speaks of protection and stability. Both address the world. Local populations address reality. Who provides security today? Who ensures children sleep tonight? In prolonged conflicts, de facto legitimacy often grows not from political declarations, but from routine and order. This is why the war of narratives is as important as the war of weapons. This war is not over, and it may not end soon. It is not a blitzkrieg. It is a war of endurance. Russia demonstrates strategic patience. Ukraine demonstrates resilience. Between these forces, civilians remain the most decisive and the most vulnerable element. If there is one defining lesson from this conflict, it is that modern wars are not won solely on the front line, but in the return or failure of normal life afterward. And there, even when the guns fall silent, the real struggle continues.